Running a business, the complexities of bringing in customers, satisfying your customers, making money, surviving, and then all the tension, the problems you have with personnel, and especially when we had such a wide customer base. It's not, you don't have to satisfy customer A, you have to satisfy customers A through Z. And my father knew that it wouldn't be a comfortable, easy life. It would be a challenging one.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast. I am really excited to have Neil Tremaglio on from Waterbury Swiss Automatics. We're going to talk about his 75-year-old company, his passion for manufacturing, and so much more. Neil, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, it's great being here. We're here to talk about my favorite subject today.
Yourself?
Myself and Waterbury Swiss.
I love that. Listen, Neil, it's the Made in America podcast, so we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make, and why do you make it?
Okay. First of all, we make parts. It sounds like a pretty broad subject. You see right here we have just a little sampling of what we make. But what we make, we manufacture parts out of metals, out of plastics, out of many, many different kinds of metals. And what we do not have our own product. We make the parts according to customers' demands. We make parts for any industry you can name. Medical, electronics, firearms, locks. Just goes on and on and on and on. And second part of your question, why do we do it? And I'm going to tell you, this may make you chuckle a little bit. It's almost like a saying we have in the business among all of us. And we say, we're not in the business to make parts. We're in the business to make money making parts. Because if we weren't making money making parts, we wouldn't be able to make parts.
There you go.
It's passionate to be able to produce one of those parts there just from a straight round rod or hexagonal rod. But probably the better part of it is be able to meet our customers' needs and then have them pay for it. And that's how we've stayed in business for all these years, because we've combined our passion for the business and for our customers. And we've had, again, we've been in, you gave me a couple extra years. We've been in business for 72 years. We're close.
Close. It's a little bit of a roundup.
Yeah, and many of our customers have been with us, a big part of that business. We have many customers that have been with us upwards of 50 years. And I could recall we had, there's one particular part we made for a customer. We made the same part for 35 straight years in the same machine. The same machine operator ran that part all those years. And then after all those years, the customer decided to move that part over to Singapore. And probably getting a little bit out of hand, but as it turned out, it went to Singapore to a factory there. There was an earthquake. The factory almost got demolished, so they came back to us and asked if we would make the part again.
There you go.
But that's all part of like our service to our customers. That's what we're all about, and that's why we're here, and that's why we made it this long.
Well, let's go back to the beginning, because it hasn't always been called Waterbury Swiss, right?
Well,
the company's had a different name, I think.
Yeah, I'll get in a little bit of the history for you, if you don't mind.
I would love it.
We started. It's my dad and his three brothers. It was quite a combination of talents, because my father, how to say, had a wonderful gift of gab. He was a great salesman, real personable person. I mean, he's the kind of guy you met him and you say, "Wow, what a great guy! This guy's so awesome." And his brothers were incredible mechanical minds. It was a perfect marriage where my father, we're going back into the late 40s, my father was able to go out and find the business. And since they had almost nothing at the time, my uncle was able to take broken down machines that other people discarded, put them together, and start making these parts and satisfying these customers. And it grew. And the company started. The first really organized company was Tremco Automatics. Our name, Tremaglio Company Automatics, and we started with running Brown and Sharp machines. And we started growing through the 50s. It was my father and my Uncle Angelo were the initial two, and then my other two uncles, Caesar and Tony, they were involved in the service during the Korean War. When they came back, they all joined together. And as I said, I'll say it again, it was just a marriage made in heaven. The four of them worked together all those years. The company grew through the years.
How long did they work together?
Well, my father, two of my uncles retired in 2001, and my father unfortunately passed away in 2002, but he was still working at that time, and one of my uncles branched off in his own business in the 90s. So they stayed together all those years. And it was a survival thing. They were one of 8 children, and growing up, they had quite a bit of hardship, and they made it through by being together, working together, and they made it work.
They sure
did. Then they fought it through, and the company grew. They evolved from Brown and Sharp type screw machines. Then they got involved with Swiss-type screw machines, and that's where the name change came. We're talking mid to late 50s. That's where Waterbury Swiss Automatics came about. Swiss automatic screw machines, and that's where the company evolved to and where it is today. But through the years, they've had to evolve even more because the world changes, the industry changes. Say we make parts. Needed parts change through the years.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Electronics, and whatnot, new inventions, they all change. You all need new parts, which is why we had to react and we had to evolve. We then branched out along with the Swiss schematic screw machines, where the machines are run on big coils that'll be running 24 hours a day, and then that got us through the 80s, and then all of a sudden I stuck into the business.
Yeah, so let's take a step back here, because I mean, sounds like your whole family's involved. So growing up, you must be seeing this all around you, right? Because I mean, you're getting family events. The uncles come over, they're working there. I'm sure as a kid, you probably were doing some stuff in the business.
Well, starting at 15 years old, I started working in the factory running machines.
Yep. Were you seeing your cousins there?
Oh, they all were. It's funny how, just to show you how some of this evolves, I was running machines at that age with 2 of my cousins who are now physicians. But it's like we all started there.
Yeah.
I worked at the factory through high school and summers while I was in college. And then after that, I decided to go in the financial field. I became a CPA. And then I moved from there I became a bond trader for several years. But you know, Ari, my heart was always with the business. And at that point, my father was getting a little bit up in age, but he was still incredibly productive. And I said, Dad, I want to become part of the business. And
you reached out to him to come back.
Yes.
So hold on, before we get to that, I want to try and maybe stick in some chronological order. I want to ask you some questions about kind of going to work there as a teenager, and I wonder what was it like, your experience, you know, being in the element with your dad and with your uncles and with your cousins. You know, was it something you look forward to? Was it something they had to force you into?
No, absolutely loved it. It was such a big part of my life. I loved being even a bigger part, because when I was a young boy, before I was able to work, I would hang around there with my dad. And finally I got to the point, wow, I could actually run these machines now. And we, several of the employees who had been there all those years too, we had become friends too. Yeah, like we had a couple of employees that had been there over 50 years. And that passion continued. I mean, as I got to learn it more and see it more and get involved more, now all of a sudden, not only that I knew about what this business was about, but now I could see, like, here's how you make these parts I've been looking at all these years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to play a part and enjoyed it.
Enjoy it every time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was it something that was talked about, the business, a lot at home growing up? Was it omnipresent? Was there a good separation of church and state?
Well, there's something that I really, really, in retrospect, admired my father about. I alluded to the fact earlier in our conversation of what a terrific. I always said, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I had the greatest mom and dad anybody could ever have. And my father was, obviously, through the earlier years, times were tough. Trying to build business, trying to grow. My father never took work home with him.
Never.
He would, and it's not even like I can't even say, oh, once or two. Never. He came home, when he left the place, he came home. It was all about the family, all about us being together. And now, I could see there had to be some tough times back then. We didn't know about it at home. When he was home, he was with his family, which was his pride and joy. And I hope I learned something from that too, because that's important. Don't bring your problems and make them part of your family's problems. And my father was very good at that and very successful. And then he later became a politician. He almost became mayor of Waterbury, but health problems took him away from that. But it was.
You almost took that gift of gab from manufacturing into politics?
Yeah. Yes. My father loved being in front of people, loved talking and whatnot. Yeah.
And your mom was a homemaker the whole time?
She was, and until I went. She was educated as a nurse, but she stayed home as a live-at-home mom until finally. I'm the youngest of 3 children. So when I finally got to high school, she went back into nursing. She did it again. Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah.
So what made so I guess let me ask you this question. You loved working in the business. Seems like you admired the life your father had built and your mom had built together. But you decided to go to be a CPA. I guess, I just wonder why. You had this passion for this business. I'm sure the opportunity was there. Why go down the financial track?
You could almost look at it as it was somewhat of a building block for me. Because my father had run this successful business all those years, I wanted to really learn. It made me very much interested in the financial field, about how businesses run and how larger businesses run. I got in public accounting where I was auditing multi-billion-dollar companies. And I think just my father being in business made me interested in the financial field. And when I got involved in public accounting, I liked it. And then when I moved on to more private industry, I became a bond trader. And I liked that. I guess another one of those things, let's say again, I was pretty lucky. Every profession I evolved to, I really enjoy. But way in the back, it's getting back to the shop and running the shop and making that a part of my life was and now is my true passion.
Did your parents push you to not go into? No, they didn't. One way or the other. There
not
was
at
no.
all. Not in fact, they let us make our career decisions by ourselves. Say the 3 of us. My oldest sister's a nurse. My next sister she's a psychologist, and I'm the CPA involved in the business. But probably my father had always wanted to be a lawyer, and it probably would have been neat if one of his children became a lawyer. But it was never like, I want you to go to law school. They let us choose, but the decisions we made, they were there behind us 100%. Always were.
So you come back, you've got a successful career in the financial world. You're a public accountant. You do auditing, international businesses.
Yes.
You're a bond trader. In the back of your mind is the siren song of Waterbury Swiss is calling. You decide to go back.
Yes.
How does that work? Tell me what happens. You go to your dad. What do you say? What does he say?
One time I said, Dad, I'd like to get involved in business. And he was somewhat hesitant, but then he supported my decision. And hesitant because running a business is not an easy thing, Ari. And boy, have I learned that through the years. And give you an old line, I have another friend who also runs a business who he took over from his father, and his father's favorite line was, you'd call out the place, how you doing? He goes, it isn't easy. And that's all he was. And what we probably mean that running a business, the complexities of bringing in customers, satisfying your customers, making money, surviving, and then all the tension, the problems you have with personnel, and especially when we had such a wide customer base, it's not, you don't have to satisfy customer A, you have to satisfy customers A through Z. And my father knew that it wouldn't be a comfortable, easy life. It would be a challenging one. So, and he somewhat warned me. He says, you sure this is what you want? I said, yeah, that's what I want. He goes, he then supported me all the way. And I think I was again fortunate, lucky Neil, we got to work side by side for 6 years. Same office, next to each other, and then my father passed away. But those 6 years, I always tell people, 6 of the best years of my life. Because, a lot of people, when they lose a loved one, they say, oh, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. We were side by side for 6 years, and we never had a curse word with each other. And we got to really, really know each other at a whole different level. And he passed away. It was great, but then the business was all mine. Then then I really got to know what it was all about. And it's every day is a learning experience. I always say another line I usually like to use, instead of counting your days, make every day count. Because,
That's right.
Because every day is a learning in this business, because of the challenges that come about. In the 90s and early 2000s, there was quite a challenge from China. A lot of our customers started contracting work off to China. We had to answer that. We had to say, what do we do? And we decided to upgrade our machinery, bring a different machinery that could be a challenge to the parts that weren't going to China. So we revamped our whole machinery concept. I said it went before. We went from the Brown and Sharps to the Swiss to the Escomatics. Now we're equally balanced between our Swiss machines and CNC machines, all computer-driven machines. We're making a lot of these complex parts you see here, and a lot more than that. We constantly have to make those decisions. How are we going to acquire new customers? How are we going to satisfy our customers as their needs become more complex? And then comes the big thing. Okay, we brought in these new machines. How are we going to run them?
Yeah, I got to learn. So I got this new technology. How do I run it? Well, hold on. Because I definitely want to talk about how you've used technology to fight back against some of the challenges that you've had from overseas. So I do want to talk about that. But, you said something I think is really interesting about, you got to spend 6 years side by side, in the same office, with your dad. I'm sure you guys aren't in there canoodling, right? You're working on the business. Yeah. What were some of the things you learned in those 6 years about the business and how to be successful in the business that you've taken with you?
Okay. I think since my father had been through so many business cycles, I learned that there's another line we always use is, it's never as good as it looks, and it's never as bad as it looks. Because there's going to be time periods where a lot of work is coming in, and you say, "Wow, great, man!" Oh, and then it slows down, and then not a lot of work is coming in. And what I learned from my dad was he could see these business cycles. He knew what was coming. He knew times. Don't get overexcited about exuberance about a lot of it, but don't get overly depressed. Keep an even flow in the business. Treat your customers well. Keep a rapport with all your customers, because it's going to get better, it's going to get worse. Every single, upward swings tend to consolidate every time. Probably the biggest thing that was one of the biggest things I learned from my father is keep an even keel. Approach your problems. Don't get overly depressed at bad times. Don't get overly enthusiastic about good times. Treat your customers well. Communicate with them. And I took that stuff with me when my father passed on, and I think I've inherited quite a bit of it, because often I hear from my customers, they go, "Wow, you're a lot like your father, Neil." I can't get a bigger compliment than that.
How do you feel about, and what was your dad's feeling around community involvement and community engagement, and what have you learned from that?
Real important. And let me explain why that's real important. You probably alluded to the fact how my father was involved in politics, and he felt that we were in Waterbury, we're still in Waterbury, we've been in Waterbury all these years. He felt that we had to be part of the town, so he became involved in politics. He was an alderman for many years, and he was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities within the town. And I've found that too, because it's helped me significantly, simply because our mayor in Waterbury is very interested in the promotion of manufacturing. And because we've been able to garner a relationship, we're getting to see results. And I don't want to get ahead of maybe possible inquiries you may have, but Mayor O'Leary has seen the importance of manufacturing and promoting manufacturing in Waterbury, which is why we've become part of it. There's a school in Waterbury called MASC, where they educate kids coming out of high school, other older people, our industry, how to get started in our industry. In quick 3-4 month courses, these people could get out and they could get jobs. And I'm on the board. In fact, I'm the treasurer of that school, and Mayor O'Leary's on that board too. We have, and why we feel fortunate to be part of Waterbury, because we want to give back to Waterbury too. They have 2 outstanding technical high schools in Waterbury, and that's how we're employing people now. Right now, we've just hired 3 people from Caner Tech. We've had people go through an intern process. We have a 16-year-old. We've had 2 16-year-old women started with us through an internship program while they were going to Caner Tech. Now, one of them is in a pro CNC program. She's outstanding, and the other one she just started with us, and we have 2 others from Caner Tech now too.
Is that, I mean, I know workforce development's a huge challenge for everybody, manufacturing in particular. Sounds like you're finding some real success partnering with Waterbury, partnering with Caner Tech, looking at the tech high schools to help feed that. Is that right? Absolutely.
We found getting into the personnel part of this conversation, we found that we lost a generation of skilled labor, because it went through the time period. Now it's almost like you're either 50 years old or you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
Because it went through so many years where it wasn't the cool thing to do, to go and get your hands dirty. You had to get an office job. You had to go to a fancy college. You had to get that education and go out but you know what? I think the tide is starting to change, because people are finding out that I could get a job in manufacturing. I could make a career for myself. And you gain a skill that you always have, always will have. And you could take it with you. If you want to travel somewhere, live in a different part of the country, you can keep that skill with you. And that's why I see this tide changing. And I'm seeing these schools very popular now, getting filled up with this. The school I'm involved with, they have a plastics machining program now. We're graduating another class next week. These kids are graduating from these schools. We have, 10, 15 kids. By the time they graduate, they have a job.
That's great.
Isn't that nice?
That's very nice.
People, not to downplay our colleges because they have a big part of industry, but so very often people get a degree from college and spending quite a bit of amounts of money. Okay, what do I do now?
We all know plenty of people that have a degree and don't do anything inside of that degree. So you had talked about upgrading your equipment, and I think that's interesting on a lot of levels. But you had sort of connected your investment in new equipment a little bit, I heard, as a defensive play when people were looking to go overseas. I assume to find cheap labor, right, was what was driving them.
Absolutely.
And you guys leaned into upgrading your machinery. Talk about the thought process behind that and the success that you saw from doing that.
We'll go back to the timeline again.
Sure.
We were involved in the Swiss Automatics machines. They make simpler parts. But they're also much less expensive to run. And what ended up happening in the industry, this is 80s into the 90s into the 2000s, our customers were finding that the parts that these machines make could be done much cheaper overseas, in most part China. So we had a challenge. We have all these machines, and our customers are going overseas. What do we do? Well, we attacked the challenge. We said, what do we do? We're going to make things that won't go overseas. We want to become more complex, make bigger or even smaller, more complex parts that won't go overseas. That it's almost like the old marketing concept of building up barriers.
Mm-hmm.
We felt we want to evolve into an industry that is going to keep our customers here and acquiring the parts from here. And how we decide that is, let's make more complicated things. Let's make ourselves more diverse. So what we did was we started investing in CNC machinery that was able to make these parts. And all of a sudden what had happened is a lot of these customers that we had that were making these simpler parts that were evolving themselves to China, but they also had a book of much more complex parts that they needed work on, they needed done. So we were able to keep the customers we had, but expand within them, but also acquire other customers that needed parts like this. And we wanted to step further. We invested in CNC machinery, but we also wanted to expand even farther. We wanted to offer more. We wanted to be able to show these customers that we could make the simpler parts and still be efficient about them. So we found in America there's also machinery that's not in our shop, but we could subcontract to, that we could offer prices and challenge the prices that people are getting from overseas. So we've decided we've subcontracted a lot of our work we've been able to keep to other more efficient type machinery in our area. And then we've gone the other way, whereas we've been able to subcontract very, very complex work of machinery that's beyond even what our CNC machines do.
So it sounds like you're tackling this thing from like 4 different directions. One, upgrading your equipment and your skills internally, partnering with partnering with different organizations in the ecosystem around Connecticut who can help you do either more complex parts than you're going to be able to do at volume where you don't want to spend the money, or less complex parts on the other side, plus attacking your customers and saying, hey, listen, that part's not efficient to be made here. What else do you have? And digging on those and building on the relationships, going back to what your dad said, make sure you know your customers and have your relationship sort of building on that. So you've taken this multifaceted approach to attacking the problem. It's really interesting.
It's worked.
Seems like it.
Yeah, and it's worked because we're able to, we almost became, a one-stop shop. We could offer these customers a very wide variety of product. Not all of it's made in our shop, but it's subcontracted. We take.
But you're getting it made, and that's the most important.
Yeah,
piece.
we take our cut out of it. Not only do we, we'll make a margin off of those parts, we're also able to present our customers, hey, we could do a lot more than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden they go, yeah, and we have this, we have that. And when they expand what they want from us, and it's the industry has to continue to evolve like that, and it's part of what I mentioned before. There's the decision-making process constantly.
Where do you meet other businesses that you can work with to help kind of make something like that happen?
It's funny. It's a small community. There's an organization in the Waterbury area called the Smaller Manufacturers Association. So a lot of us are members of that. But a lot of us just know each other through the years. It's funny how I say it. It's not like we go to functions, we bump into each other. So and so, oh, I worked with your father many years ago. I worked with your. Because it's such a small community, we need each other. We talk to each other frequently, all the time. Even our competitors.
Yeah.
We talk with them. Hey, what's going on? What's going on in your business? We have friendly competition among one another. We would never, quote unquote, steal customers from one another. But we try to say, what's working for you? Maybe it'll work for me. And you get to know people.
A little bit of stronger
you get to know
together.
more people. And, even through the subcontracting, because a lot of what we do, we'll make parts, but you still have to heat treat these parts. You still have to plate these parts. So you get to know the heat treaters and the platers and the secondary people. And it's a large community, but it's a small one at the same time.
Yeah.
We know each other.
Yeah, I got that. Well, I know we're kind of running out of time, Neil, but I wanted to ask you, you enjoyed so much working in the family business. You came back and got time with your dad. Any chance your kids are making some time in the business?
Well, okay, I have a daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, and right now she's got a very good job with an insurance company in Hartford, and she loves it. And she never had the large interest in becoming part of the business that I had growing up, and she's also a new mother now too. So.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah,
I guess that makes you a new grandfather.
That makes me a grandfather.
It sure
right?
does.
Yeah.
It sure does.
Yes.
Well, congratulations. I'm not anywhere near being a grandfather, having two young kids myself, but it certainly looks like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
It looks like I think
I can't wait to see him tonight. He's gonna be over the house.
My mom said the best part about being a parent is being a grandparent. So.
Well, I have a cousin that had a great line for me. He goes, if I knew being a grandparent was this good, I would have done that before I was a parent.
Fair enough. Are you ready for a rapid fire round of questions, Neil?
I hope so.
Here we go. Red Sox or Yankees?
Yankees.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was happening.
In fact, I have Yankee seats in my office next to my desk.
Do you? You came in with the BC shirt on, so there was hope, but dashed. Starbucks or Dunkin' for coffee?
Dunkin'.
Staycation or exotic destination for traveling?
The first one was
Staycation. Stay home or go somewhere. Yeah. Sports car or SUV?
SUV.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Do you have a favorite business book?
Favorite business book? No, I don't.
Okay. Do you have a favorite book?
It's more like authors.
Sure.
Nelson DeMille being one of my favorites. I I love mystery. I love a lot of mystery novels. And a lot of the authors that present that stuff.
Nice. What's something, Neil, that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's propelled you to all the success you've had?
Again, this is going to be a story that I probably repeated way too many times today. It's the guidance I got from my father and mother to believe in myself and know that if you work hard enough, you could achieve. And also faith in God.
There you go. What's something you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you went back and told young Neil and he'd listened to you, you think have a real positive impact on his life?
Wow, that's a good question. What I learned later in my career. Okay, Neil, let's think about this. If I went back, told Neil, be more serious and diligent as you approach your goals. And what I mean by that is probably when I first started my career, I wasn't as serious about the direction I wanted to head that I eventually became. And then as I became more involved, I realized how much part of my life it was.
Be more serious about achieving your goals. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Neil, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Same here.
Getting to know you and learning your story. Appreciate it.
This is fun. Thank you so much, man. This is great. I enjoyed it.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct, a Compass MSP company.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. You know, my goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.